O kāti kia ora no tātou, i tēnei ahi, i tēnei rangi, i tēnei wā. Ko ngā rerekētanga ko tatu tonu mai koutou, ngā reire mihi ana. Hoi anō, tēnei haki te mea tuana e noho ana, engari e kauwhana kia koutou i tēnei rā, i runga i ngā timatanga kōrero, kia whai wehi ki tō tātou matunu i te rangi. O tira, kia taua i ngā manaakitanga ki runga i tō tātou kiingi, tu heitia potatou te wherowhero te tuawhitu. O tira rātou ko wehi atu i tēnei wā. Tēnei wā rere kia tātou. Nā reira, rātou ko huri atu, haere, moi mai. Ka weho rātou kia rātou. Hoki mai kia tātou nei. Tēnā rā koutou katoa i tēnei rā. Kia ora, everybody, e mihi ana. It's quite daunting to see so many shoulders and faces. And it's kind of getting a little bit nervous. Hoi anō, kia mōhio mai koutou. My name is Te Whainoa. I was born and raised in Ngārua Wāhia, on Tūranga Waiwai Marae, and have spent a huge portion of my life, pretty much the majority of my life, on my part, and been in Auckland now for about 10 years. And yeah, I'm a bit, just so you know, I am a musician. I started playing music when I was 7, and I toured, playing covers bands and playing in touring bands as well as a guitarist. That's where I suppose my love for language came about, was traveling the world and hearing other languages. Hoi anō, I am also, I was born with haemophilia. If you don't know what that is, it's a clotting, I'm missing a clotting factor in my body, so my blood doesn't clot, which has also taken me to many places. But I suppose it's probably the first time I actually had to engage with not only, just different cultures within the blood community, within the bleeding community around the world, and that's where a lot of, I suppose, my insights come from. And also, yeah, e te kānanga kōrero duty, I studied as a linguist. I completed my master's in linguistics, and I'm a language nerd. It's what I love. I grew up with a lot of nannies who would take the time to explain certain words that they were hearing being used while I was growing up. And as a result of that, I became quite fascinated about language. And also, while I was doing my studies, I didn't realize how lucky my upbringing was. Growing up with my grandparents and growing up with the kaumātua and kuia of Tūranga Waiwai, and all just in Ngāru Wāhia and Waikato in general. And it wasn't until started working in a school out south, in Mana Whenua, and then going to uni, that I realized the privilege that I had within my upbringing. And yeah, as of recent, I work now for core education as a facilitator, and mainly focusing on IT stuff at the moment. I don't know why, because I know nothing about it. Hoi anō, I can read and I can learn, and generally manage to get a message across. But it has been a real pleasure in the last few months teaming up with our crew, Tā Raikura, which is how I met Whai Judy. And the kaupapa of Tā Raikura of building a school out of the narrative, and not having a school get built and putting the narrative in it. Basically, it is the Grow Waikaha model. But being here in Auckland, and Tāmaki has its challenges. As we know, there are many iwi in Tāmaki. there's heaps on paper, and there's probably even more not on paper. So learning to navigate that space. I'm going to lay it out straight away. I'm not an expert in this stuff. I just been raised in it. So, but actually having to go out and do it is a whole nother story. Understanding what mana whenua is, who mana whenua are, how they connect to that particular part of the land, and also in Auckland, how many iwi are in one area. Working currently with a high school, and they have 9 iwi that all back onto the same bit of land. I personally find that exciting. But schools and the people that we work with don't, because they're trying to find generally a real, whatever narrative they're trying to find one concise and whole narrative that speaks to the land. And it kind of doesn't, we've realized the ones that we have connected with so far have realized that, well, I'm hoping they're realizing that it doesn't quite work that way. If you've had 9 iwi living in one area, you've got 9 different narratives. And those are only the ones that are present on paper. There could have been people there before. We don't know. So learning to interact and engage, first and foremost, is something that I hold quite dear to my heart. I've seen in the past what happens when I've seen the hurt. I've seen the mamai of what happens when things are going on a particular piece of land without any thought of even asking the locals about that particular bit of land. And I learned a great lesson off my koro once, my grandfather. He had a guy, he was a surveyor and he was an architect, actually, my grandfather. And a guy came to see him and says, "Hey, I'm looking to build up on that hill. People told me I should come and say hello to you and ask your thoughts about this." And and the guy asks him, "What do you reckon?" And my grandfather goes, "What about building up there?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, I wouldn't." And left it at that. The guy carried on building up there. And within about 3 years, I think they had to move out. And I think they actually got the house demolished in the end. It was quite a haunted little area, that place. I won't say where. But came back to my grandfather and said, "You said it was okay to build up there." He goes, "No," I said, I wouldn't build up there. And what I realized then is something that I realized I knew my whole life, but I saw it in play, was that our kaumatua generally will never say no to someone, but they'll just give their opinion about it. So learning to listen to them and learning what a yes is and what a no is really quite important, especially when it comes to the English language. If they were to say it in the reo, to be a little more clearer. But what I learnt, one was that part of what my grandfather showed me. He didn't know I was watching. I was just watching. And also, two, having to be really, really clear about what your intention is and on a particular bit of land with a particular set of people, and also knowing when and where to ask the questions that are appropriate and get the appropriate guidance. Being clear is what I found, and this is something that we're still working through in our little crew in Taraikura. But clarity on one, how to engage, two, who the appropriate person to engage with, and three, how that can take place, how the engagement can take place. One of the biggest kōrero I hear often from a lot of people is, we've sent so many emails to Mana Whenua, and they just, we just don't hear from them. And it's kind of like, do you realize, one, you're inviting them to a hui on their own land? It's like you coming into my lounge and telling me that you're going to have a meeting in my lounge and I'm invited. Yeah. Two, these are people. Mana Whenua has this, it kind of title, the title itself has a whole lot of prestige given to it. And it's almost non-existent. It's almost a mythical thing, this whole Mana Whenua. People don't realize that when you're talking about Mana Whenua, you're actually talking about people. And that should come first and foremost. Generally, when we're talking about Mana Whenua and engaging with them, you're always going to end up with a kaumātua, with either a few elders or one elder. If you're lucky, there may be somebody employed by the iwi who can actually, you can set a time up with and all those things. But generally, the kaumātua that you're going to be engaging with are stretched. They do it because they do it voluntary, generally. And, it's voluntary. They're not there. That's not their job. They have jobs. And then they go to all these meetings as well, and they drive everywhere. So, these are people. These are kaumātua. I'm very staunch about kaumātua. I've seen my whole life how hard they work for their iwi. And that doesn't get acknowledged. And it is something that I hold dear to ensure that people, one, treat them as people, not as a Mana Whenua representative, because that's what they are, but that's not who they are. That's what they're at that particular meeting for. They might go to the next meeting an hour later and wear a different hat. So, yeah, I'm just big on trying to make sure that the engagement happens genuinely. And that, I had to think about it earlier, about the whole, they haven't got back to us, we've emailed them, they haven't got back to us. And I started thinking, well, I probably wouldn't go anywhere if somebody hasn't come and introduced themselves to me either. And that initial engagement shows a lot of commitment, or the lack of commitment. And face to face, especially for a first hui, without a kaupapa, just getting to meet somebody and getting to know someone isn't that hard to do. I know we're all bound by our timelines and our deadlines and things like that, but going and knocking on the door, picking up a packet of biscuits and going and knocking on the door and saying hello, I don't find that too hard to do, and I think they deserve that respect. So that's something that I'm quite big on. And just to start the initial kōrero of what it is that you're wanting, because they've always been there, but why now? Yeah. And it's very, very, I'm loving what I'm hearing at the moment, working with Tāraikura and a lot of people wanting to engage with Mana Whenua. But then actually looking, okay, so what does that actually mean? What does that engagement look like? Because if you're lucky, the Mana Whenua will give you what you ask for. And that's if you're lucky. But then what happens after that? Because whatever that narrative and that kōrero that they give will constantly give. It'll give all the time. Every year, new cohort of students, and that gift will keep giving. So one, how is that looked after? Who can speak to that? Who can speak to the narrative or the whakatauki that was given? How do you know you're looking after it well? How do you know you're looking after it the way that iwi want it to be looked after? But also, so is it just they give you the narrative and then they're kind of in the background, they might get invited to a couple of prize givings here and there. A relationship is a relationship. And generally, if they're giving something, for me anyway, personally, if they're giving something like a narrative or a whakatauki that is particular to that bit of land, or to that particular iwi, then there is a constant hononga there. There's a constant, you're bound, but often that binding is kind of only happening from one direction, not the other. So what does a relationship look like, and how can it be sustained going forward? Because getting a narrative is one thing, maintaining it and looking after people and building a relationship is another. So yeah, that's kind of been the eye opener up here in Auckland, is trying to ensure that when Mana Whenua trying to put things in place so when the engagement starts, that a relationship is built first and foremost, and even when people who help start the relationship, when they move away, or when the principal, if they get a new principal, or if you don't know what may happen, but that relationship stays and it stays strong. And so how to ensure that, and it all comes back to that first initial hello with some Tim Tams. Yeah. I think first and foremost, like there's no shortcut to this stuff, eh? There's no app. There's nothing like that that's going to help this. It's just getting it wrong. Just be prepared to get it wrong and learn from it. Yeah? One of the things, as a linguist, I tend to chop things up the way that I do, and one of the things I have been asking people lately is, how do you engage with mana? Not Mana Whenua, just mana. Yeah? I'll let you have a think about that. The reason I ask that is because Mana Whenua, or Pou Whenua, they're the voices of that particular bit of land. Yeah? And I suppose what's happened is we've got a general idea of what's happened in our history, but their knowledge and the way that our old people liked to live with the land was kind of overtaken. And I had a talk. I was talking with Judy yesterday, and I was running a real class, and we're teaching place names, and often we're talking about Tamaki Makaurau, and they go, oh, that's the Māori word for Auckland. I'm going, no. Auckland is Auckland, and Tamaki Makaurau is Tamaki Makaurau. Kirikiriroa is Kirikiriroa, and Hamilton is Hamilton. Because when I was growing up, those names, as it was explained to me by one of my nannies, that name signifies the date that the mana of the land was lost in that area. And I didn't understand that when she first said it. And then we hit the 100 years of Hamilton. And then I got it. I was like, oh, so 100 years ago, our pās and all that stuff here, they would have been wiped out by then. But that's when we started to be history and not present. So what happened there was our mana was no longer acknowledged. And how do I say this? When we think about the word mana, it's always spoken about with the English definition that it's been given, not actually what it is. And if you understand the whakapapa of mana, or the hekenga of mana and Māori, then you'll realize that there is no difference between me and you. The tree outside, the fish in the ocean, the birds that are flying, everybody's mana, as far as we're concerned, and Waikato, everyone's mana is the same. And when engaging with people and just saying hello, when somebody's mana isn't acknowledged, that's when judgment starts kicking in. And that's when people put themselves on a high and others down on low. And we do it every day. We all do it to a certain extent. We've got a whole lot going on in our country at the moment. We've got a whole lot of homeless, all those things. But their mana is just the same as mine, still the same as mine. I got a job, I got a degree, I got all those things. I've been to 43 countries. I've seen the world. But there's no difference between me and that fella, or me and the next person, me and the next person. There's no difference between me and the bird. And I think first and foremost, when engaging with Mana Whenua, you're engaging with people first. Kapai. And one thing I realized when I was studying at uni was how people would treat somebody with a PhD, and all those high academics, and not to put it down on that. That's to get to that point is amazing work, but people would put them up on pedestals, but generally they're just normal people. Half the ones that I ended up meeting are good friends of mine now, and I used to hold them in awe because everybody else did, and then I got to know them, and they have a particular set of knowledge for a particular kaupapa, but outside of that, they just like to have a beer. They like to go for a bike ride, all those things. So just realizing that, they've learned something, I'm yet to learn it. But outside of that realm, they're just people. And I think when engaging with Mana Whenua, you need to acknowledge the mana of a person first. And, well, that they have mana, I can go on about this for ages, but I won't drag it on. I just hope you kind of get the idea that I'm going for, Well, I'm hoping you are.
Te whānau, I picked up from the previous chat that there were quite a few people asking a similar question, and it related to, I think, this idea of who exactly should we connect with? Like, how do we find the appropriate kaumātua connect with, somebody asked, or how do you know who the right person is to go to initially, somebody else asked. So a lot of people are asking that question. Are you able to expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, I could try, I suppose. You never know who to talk to, you know. You can go to a huge hui and it's usually the one sitting in the corner saying nothing is the one you actually have to go and talk to. But figuring that out, doing your research. You may know somebody from the area who may have an idea. There may be a kohanga reo or kura or a marae somewhere close that they could shed some light on it for you. Though most iwi have little, they've got websites now, and you know, it's not a bad thing just to touch base and ask. Yeah? If you don't know, just ask. Tikanga 101, man. And with, I suppose, realizing once you've established that, though, how do I keep them safe? First and foremost, because they are talking on behalf of their iwi. And so you might drop something to them, and by the end of that hour hui, you want an answer, and he or she has to go back to the iwi, get their whakaaro around it, and you have to have another hui. Yeah? That's how it would work most times, but sometimes it doesn't happen. They can give you an answer right there and then. But it's just ensuring that, I mean, you might go to the wrong set of people straight away, but no doubt they'll put you back on the right path. Yeah? I've learned a lot by getting my ears screwed and actually going to the wrong people and asking the wrong questions, and just not being scared to take that hit, you know, being up for, because the kaupapa comes first. It's not about you, so don't worry about your ego. Put the kaupapa first and go and ask people. We're at this school, or we're here, we're based here, we just want to know who to engage with, who to talk to about the whenua. And they might say, oh, that's us. Or they might say, oh, you have to go and see so-and-so. Generally, it's very, they're willing, but it does come with some, I always say you have to do this, you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable, and you have to allow yourself to get it wrong. You're never ever going to know if you got it right until there's no more questions asked. Yeah? One thing I have learnt is if they understand, they will not talk. And that's generalizing actually, but generally with a lot of the kaumata that I've dealt with, if they get the kaupapa and they understand what your role is, and they understand what the kaupapa is, you'll have a very hard time getting anything out of them. And that's usually the yes that I was talking about earlier. That's not the no. When the questions get asked, that's the no. But learning how to engage with that person in the first instance, or engaging with the right people, you just have to say, you just have to go and do it. You have to go and knock on someone's door and say, hello, I'm here from this school. We're wanting to make a mana whenua. We're wanting to engage with mana whenua. Are you the right people, first and foremost? And can we work together?
Kia ora. S. Billington. I'm sorry, I don't. Someone asked a question here, and I think I would love to hear you ask your question.
That's me. I'm Suzanne.
Yes.
I'm from
Suzanne.
Tauranga, Moana. I'm actually in Wellington at the moment, but home is Tauranga. And my thing is about it can be so one-sided. I feel like we constantly asking for help and we're not able to actually, or I know we're able, but it's how do we do it in such a way that we're also giving back and building a relationship and people feel cared for in return. Because so my question really was around what are some examples of ways in which we can maintain and sustain the relationship over time? So even I'm worried that I mean we're in the process of building our relationship with iwi when it should have been built many years ago, and how do we keep it alive, real and warm, so that it's not something where I feel we're taking all the time. I've often said, you know, when we've visited marae, and people have said you're part of our marae now, and we've wanted to take the kids back to either just clean up around the place or do whatever and actually be helping rather than just turning up and it's dial a marae visit type thing. I find it really hard to sort of be able to give back. So yeah, that's kind of the question really. How do we maintain the relationship and have it as a two-way thing that's just as warm and supportive for iwi as it is for us?
How do you maintain a relationship in the first place?
Yeah.
Hey, my koro used to grab his lawnmowers and just go and mow some lawns. Or when I was growing up at school, we would go down. I had my own particular garden that I had to work in, but we'd go down and just go and pull weeds, something like that. There's no real full-on answer to that. In my opinion, it's just ask them. If it's like I have been talking to a couple of principals lately around what happens once they get the narrative, and maybe they might want to think about asking or having someone based at school who's been appointed by the iwi, who is a paid kaiawhina, to one, look after the narrative, but two, constantly be that voice there to help inform teachers where they need help, but two, to keep that ongoing relationship going and making sure it's actually somebody that has been appointed from the iwi themselves, not somebody that is from the iwi, because there's a subtle difference there. Somebody from the iwi, yet they'll want to do the right job, but this one has been given the authority for that kaupapa in that school. That's one way that I can see it working. The other way is just not waiting for them to get in touch with you, but just getting in touch with them, having planned marae visits every term. Yeah, they may not be doable, but man, make it happen. They'll love it. They'll love it, and the learning they'll get is the kids, especially the learning they'll get will be huge. And the real special thing about that is when you're trying to build a relationship, you don't always get it right, and it takes some finesse, I suppose. But generally, I just think be on the front foot. Just be active. Try and be as active as you can for that marae. For those marae, you may have 2 or 3 in the area, and keep that contact going, but not contact just by email. Yeah. Sometimes they may not know what to do, but the question, the asking, hey, is there anything that you need doing? that needs to be done around the pa. You might see you might know where one of the kuia live or one of the kaumātua live and just go and mow their lawns. You know, it's about service, and it's about being a part of the relationship, not hoping that the relationship will happen, and being active about it, just like anything. But our kaumātua are very, very, always, they'll do anything for the kids, generally, but they're very wary because it's all been taken.
Yeah.
And so they will, there's always hesitation, and I don't blame them. So at the end of the day, we were just having a chat in our hui, in our little breakout room, and talking about mana enhancing stuff. And my grandmother stood up one day and said, "Who said my mana needed to be enhanced?" And then from that, she goes, "My mana needs to be acknowledged, not enhanced. No I o tōku mana. My mana comes from the Creator." So, and to say that your mana somebody's mana needs to be enhanced is to have a deficit thought about that person, and thinking that they actually need. And the same thing, like all of a sudden, it's a big thing now. We need to touch base with Mana Whenua. They've been there the whole time. They haven't been acknowledged. So that acknowledgement, first and foremost, how do you engage with mana? How do you engage with Mana Whenua? It's the same thing. And they might say no. They might say no 100 times, but you keep asking, keep pushing, keep offering, keep requesting. They after 5 or 6 years, they go, "Oh, fella looks committed. Yeah, we might give them a shot." Yeah. So I mean, there's no one way of doing anything. I'm just talking off the things that I've experienced and things that I've heard.